All right, ready to dive into something kind of mind-blowing. We're tackling how kids go from babbling to like full-on conversations. You sent over some slides on those big language acquisition theories, and honestly, I'm fascinated.
What's wild is there's no one answer. We'll be checking out all sorts of ideas, from language being hardwired in our brains to, how important just talking with people is.
So it's like that classic nature versus nurture debate, but about how we talk.
Totally. And like a good mystery, there's clues pointing everywhere. We should start with Chomsky, the linguistics rock star, and his nativist theory.
Oh yeah, Chomsky's LAD, that language acquisition device. Like babies come with a language app already installed.
Exactly. Back in the 50s, Chomsky was saying kids have this inborn knack for language, not just copying what they hear, but using this LAD thing to, like, crack the grammar code.
It gets me every time how adults can mess up speaking, use slang, whatever, but kids still figure out the right way to say things, built-in grammar checker or something.
That's what Chomsky was getting at. He said it proved it wasn't just imitation. Kids are born understanding linguistic universals. Those are like the basic language blocks found everywhere: nouns, verbs, how sentences work.
So it's like a universal grammar starter pack.
Kinda. They use that knowledge to make sense of whatever language they hear around them, testing things out and getting better as they go.
Like tiny scientists, but with language. I've noticed how kids hate being corrected sometimes, like they're determined to do it their way.
You picked up on that. Fits with them being active learners, not just soaking things up passively. They're always analyzing, playing around, building their own language system in their heads.
But like any good theory, I bet Chomsky had his critics.
Of course. Big thing was, he didn't talk much about interaction, so focused on the internal stuff. He kind of skipped over how, social stuff affects things.
So LED might be the blueprint, but talking with people is like building the house.
Perfect way to put it. Which brings us to B.F. Skinner. Totally different view. Behaviorist perspective, it's all about how the environment shapes us, language included.
Cue the classic examples of like, baby says mama, everyone cheers, they say it more.
Yep. Skinner, total opposite of Chomsky, thought language was mainly learned through copying and getting rewarded. Operant conditioning, he called it, our actions, including talking, are shaped by what happens after.
So rewards make you do things again, punishments stop you.
Right.
Sounds simple for something as complex as talking, though.
Right. Critics said it was way too simple for how intricate language is. Kids make grammar mistakes, even when they've been praised for talking right before.
And how often do parents correct what a kid says, not the grammar itself? I eated all my cookies. You're going to focus on the cookies being gone, not eated versus ate.
Exactly. Behaviorism misses that creative part of language. Kids make up sentences they've never heard before. Can't explain that with just rewards.
So copying and rewards play a part, but there's got to be more going on in those little heads.
Definitely. And that more might be about how their brains are developing overall, which is where Jean Piaget comes in. His theory is a fascinating one.
Piaget, right. He was all about how a kid understands the world affecting how they talk, yeah.
Spot on. Piaget believed language is like woven into a kid's overall brain power. They can only use language for stuff they truly get in their heads first.
So how well they talk is tied to what stage of development they're at mentally.
Yes, Piaget had these stages of cognitive development, and language followed along. Like, a kid won't use bigger or smaller until they understand size, which comes later.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Can't expect them to run before they walk. Need that basic understanding first.
Exactly. One of Piaget's coolest observations was that little kids go through an egocentric phase. Their whole world is from their viewpoint, and how they talk shows it.
Oh, seen that a million times, trying to explain something, but they assume you know everything they do.
Classic egocentric speech. Shows how intertwined language and brain development are. Piaget also said kids learn by assimilating, fitting new info into what they know, or accommodating, changing their knowledge to fit the new info.
And he saw these changes as mental leaps, right? Like suddenly they just get it, and their language skills jump up too.
Those aha moments parents love, often from those cognitive leaps, like solving a puzzle. Suddenly the picture's clear.
Love that visual. But even Piaget had people disagreeing with him, I'm guessing.
Good skepticism. He was super influential, but yeah, there were challenges. Some kids with learning difficulties use language that's more advanced than their developmental stage should allow. Shows it's more complicated than we thought.
So Piaget's framework is great, but maybe there's even more to the story.
You got it. And this is where things get even more interesting. Let's jump into social interaction and the work of Jerome Bruner.
Okay, so we've got Chomsky with the built-in language stuff, Skinner and his reward system, and Piaget saying it's all tied to how our brains develop. Starting to see the connections, but gotta be more
Uh,
to it.
oh, there's always more. Let's bring in someone else who, like Bruner, was all about how kids learn words. Jean Aitchison. She was fascinated by not just what words they learn, but how they figure them out.
So not just memorizing a dictionary, but like understanding how words work. That's cool. My niece went through this phase. Everything was a car, even the dog.
And that is a perfect example of what Aitchison called the labeling stage.
Mm.
It's like first they slap a word on anything remotely close, right? Then comes packaging. That's when they realize car doesn't cover trucks, bus is the whole deal.
Ah, so they get more specific, picky with their words.
Exactly. And then they hit network building, which is where it gets seriously impressive. They start understanding how words relate to each other, opposites, categories, the whole shebang. Mental dictionaries linking up.
Wow, so from car for everything, they build this whole web of meaning in their heads. Incredible. But it makes me think, if those early talks with grown-ups are so key, what about that more knowledgeable other idea? I've heard that somewhere.
You're thinking of Lev Vygotsky. Like Bruner, super into the social side of learning. He said kids learn best from someone more skilled, someone who can guide them a little beyond what they can do alone.
Makes sense, like a learning buddy who helps them level up their skills.
Perfect way to put it. Vygotsky called this the zone of proximal development, that sweet spot. It's where the kid can't quite do it themselves, but with a bit of help, boom, they get it.
So it's like the grown-up provides the scaffolding within that zone, right?
Yeah.
Pushing just enough for that aha moment to happen.
Yes, and those moments are what it's all about. Vygotsky thought language itself is a tool for learning, and through talking with others, kids learn how to use that tool to understand everything around them.
Okay, seeing how all these theories are starting to connect now, each one adds another piece to the puzzle.
And we've got one more big name to throw in the mix, Michael Tomasello. He came at it from a new angle, called it the usage-based model.
Usage-based, so like how kids actually use language day to day.
Exactly. Tomasello is all about how good kids are at picking up on patterns in how we use language. He saw that around 9, 12 months old, they start to get that communication is intentional.
Intentional. Like they realize we use words to actually mean something, to get our point across.
You got it. They figure out it's not just sounds, it's using those sounds for a reason, to get what they want, share how they feel, the whole 9 yards. Tomasello thought this was huge for kids to go from single words to sentences.
That is so cool. So from babbling and pointing, they crack the code that there's a purpose behind it all, like a secret language they're figuring out.
Totally. And they do it by watching us, like really closely. How adults change their tone, what words they pick, even body language to mean different things. Masterclass in observation.
Makes you realize how much we take talking for granted. Comes so naturally, but underneath it's incredibly complex.
No doubt.
Yeah.
That's what makes this whole field so fascinating. Every time you think you've got it, there's another layer to uncover.
It's like all these theories are different sides to the same, like, crazy complicated jewel. Innate ability, environment, how our brains grow, social stuff, and being able to recognize patterns, understand what people mean. It's a lot.
It really is. Shows you just how amazing kids are at learning.
I have to say, learning about all these different ideas has totally changed how I see kids learning to talk. It's so much more than just soaking stuff up, you know?
100%. It's active, it's constant change, and it's social to its core, building connections, not just vocabulary lists.
And the thing is, even though these are expert theories, we've all seen them in action our whole lives, right?
You said it. Every time we're around a kid, those theories are playing out, whether we realize it or not.
We're all part of this big language experiment. So what does this all mean for our listeners who are trying to wrap their heads around it?
I hope the big takeaway is it's complicated. There's no one right answer, no magic recipe for language development.
Right. It's not about picking a winner, but seeing how each theory gives us a valuable piece of the puzzle.
Exactly. Keep those different lenses in mind when you see kids in your own life. Look for those natural abilities, how their environment matters, how their thinking plays a role, and the power of just talking with them.
Like we've given them a new set of glasses to see language development in a whole new way.
Love that. And hopefully with those glasses, they'll see how amazing language is and what an incredible journey each kid goes through to become a fluent speaker.
You know, it's funny, we make a big deal out of those first words, but now I'm seeing it's just the tip of the iceberg, you know?
Totally. It's like we've been looking at the engine under the hood this whole time, all that complexity that makes those few words possible.
Exactly. Every kid's journey to actually talking is its own adventure, huh?
Absolutely. No one right way to learn language,
Yeah.
just like there's no one right way to tell a story,
Hmm.
you know? Each kid brings their own stuff to it, their experiences, how they see things.
It's like that saying, don't fill a kid up like a bucket, light him up like a fire. This whole deep dive has like reignited my own curiosity about all this.
Me too. And it makes you appreciate those little moments we have with kids, how important they are. Those talks, even just hanging out, it all adds up.
Big time. If our listeners get one thing from this, I hope it's that they're more important to a kid's language than they realize. You know what I mean?
Couldn't agree more. It's not about drills and flashcards. It's making language fun. A whole world to explore where they feel good trying things out.
So read to them, sing silly songs, tell those stories, ask questions, and really listen to the answers, even if it's just babbles at first.
Those babbles are where it all starts. With a little support, they turn into something amazing.
Love that. This deep dive has given me so much to think about, like a whole new world opened up or something.
It's just the beginning. So much more to learn out there. How grammar develops, accents, how we use language socially, culture. It goes on and on.
Way too much to cover, but
Yeah.
that's what makes it fun, right? 100%. Learning never stops, and understanding how we communicate, that's a pretty awesome thing to explore.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into how kids learn language. Until next time, keep those chats going, keep those questions coming, and keep being amazed by the magic of language.